There's a lock inside your head right now, and a key sitting in it. Your body built both. Took about 600 million years. And the fit is perfect, because it had to be that lock only ever needed to accept one thing. Every drug in this video is a counterfeit of that key. That's the whole trick. That's all of it. Caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, weed, cocaine, heroin, MDMA, not one of them invents a feeling. They can't. There's no new emotion hiding in a pill. All any drug can do is walk up to a lock you already own and jam something into it that's close enough. So, forget, is this drug bad? That's the wrong question, and it's why nobody ever gets a straight answer. The real question is, which lock and how hard does it turn? Answer that, and everything falls out of it. Why coffee nudges you and fentanyl stops your lungs? Why weed makes you lose a sentence halfway through saying it? Why one of these drugs quietly kills more people than every other one on this list combined? And it's the one you've probably been handed at a wedding. 10 drugs, 1 mechanism. Let's go. Start with the one you had this morning. 80% of adults use caffeine every single day. Almost none of them call it a drug. They call it breakfast. So here's what's actually happening in that cup. Every second you're awake, your brain is burning fuel. And burning fuel leaves exhaust. That exhaust is a molecule called adenosine, and it builds up all day long. It plugs into receptors in your brain, and every time it does, it says one word: tired. 9 a.m., barely any. 9 p.m., a mountain of it, and your brain is begging you to lie down. That's not a mood. That's a chemical count. That's sleep pressure. Now, caffeine is shaped almost exactly like adenosine, close enough to fool the lock, so it slides into those receptors and then does absolutely nothing. It just sits there, takes the seat. And this is the part everyone gets backwards. Caffeine does not give you energy. It has no energy to give. It makes you deaf. The tiredness never left. It's still there, still stacking up, still completely real. You just can't hear it anymore. Every bit of adenosine you've made is piling up outside a door that won't open. Then caffeine wears off. Half of it's still in you 5 hours later. That 4 p.m. coffee is a quarter alive at 2 in the morning, whether you feel it or not. And when it finally clears, that door swings open, and the entire mountain walks in at once. That's the crash. You never lost energy. You just got the bill. And long term? Your brain notices the blocked doors and builds more of them, more receptors, which means you now need caffeine just to feel the way you used to feel for free. Skip a day, and you get the headache. That's dependence. Textbook. In about 10 days. On breakfast. Which raises a fair question: if that's dependence, what exactly makes the next one worse? Nicotine is the most efficient drug on this list. Not the strongest. Nowhere near. The most efficient. Your brain runs on acetylcholine attention, memory, muscle. And nicotine fits its receptors so well that we gave up and named them after the drug. They're called nicotinic receptors. Your receptors. Named after a plant. 10 seconds. That's how long it takes from your lungs to your brain. Nicotine opens those receptors, and downstream, dopamine fires in the reward circuit, the same circuit that lights up when you eat or win or someone you love says your name. And people think dopamine means pleasure. It doesn't. Dopamine's message is smaller than that and much more dangerous. It says, whatever you just did, do it again. Now count. 1 cigarette is about 10 puffs, 10 hits. 10 separate times that message gets stamped in. A pack a day is 200 repetitions. Every day. Rain, work, funeral, doesn't matter 200. Nothing else on this list gets that many reps. Heroin doesn't. Cocaine doesn't. That's why nicotine is one of the hardest habits on earth to break, and it has almost nothing to do with the high. The high is mild. The training is relentless. And here's the cruel part. Nicotine itself isn't what fills the cancer wards. The smoke does that. Burning anything makes tar and carcinogens, and nicotine's only job is to make sure you keep breathing them in. It's not the poison. It's the hook that holds the poison in your mouth. Everything else in this video is a key. This one is a sledgehammer. Ethanol is a tiny molecule small enough to slip into basically every cell membrane you own, so it doesn't pick a lock. It leans on the whole building. Dozens of systems at once, but 2 of them decide your night. It boosts GABA. GABA is the brake pedal. That's the loosening, the warmth, the wobble. And it blocks glutamate. Glutamate is the accelerator, and it's how you write new memories. Breaks down, accelerator cut, and now watch how precisely that predicts a night out. First drink. The prefrontal cortex goes quiet. That's your inhibition, your judgment, your inner editor. And it goes first not because alcohol targets it, but because it's the most expensive thing your brain runs. So it's the first thing to brown out. You get louder, braver, funnier, we're pretty sure. Alcohol didn't make you social. It just fired the guy who was stopping you. Keep drinking. Glutamate keeps dropping. And eventually the hippocampus stops saving to disk. That's a blackout, and nobody understands what that actually is. You weren't unconscious. You were awake the entire time. Talking, walking, deciding things, making choices you will answer for. The camera was on, the recorder wasn't. Push further, and those brakes reach the brainstem, the part running your breathing. That's alcohol poisoning, not a metaphor. Just the same mechanism, 3 drinks deeper. And underneath all of it, your liver is turning ethanol into acetaldehyde, which is considerably more toxic than the alcohol was, and a recognized carcinogen. That's part of your hangover. It's also why alcohol shows up in cancers of the mouth, throat, liver, colon, and breast. Then the long game. Drink for years, and your brain compensates, weakens the brakes, strengthens the accelerator, tries to find center again. Now, take the alcohol away suddenly, and you got an accelerator with nothing holding it, which is why alcohol withdrawal nearly alone on this list causes seizures and kills. Heroin withdrawal makes people wish they were dead. Alcohol withdrawal can actually do it. 3 million deaths a year, worldwide. It is, by a distance, the deadliest drug in this video. And it's the one they pour at weddings. Hold that thought, I'm coming back to it. Okay. Strange fact time. Your body makes its own cannabis. Not exactly, but close enough to be unsettling. You have an endocannabinoid system receptors called CB1 and CB2 scattered through your brain and immune system, and you make your own molecules for them. One's called anandamide, from the Sanskrit for bliss. Somebody was having a good day when they named that. What's it for? Mostly it's a dimmer switch. Neurons use it to tap the neuron next door and say, too much, ease off. It fine-tunes appetite, pain, mood, memory by turning down whatever's running hot. THC fits those CB1 receptors, but sloppily and everywhere at once. It has none of the precision your own molecules have. They adjust one dimmer in one room for one moment. THC leans on the whole board. So look at the map, and the entire experience is just addresses. CB1 is dense in the hippocampus, so short-term memory goes first. That's losing your own sentence halfway through it. Dense in the cerebellum, so coordination and timing drift. Dense in the hypothalamus, so appetite signaling misfires. The munchies aren't a punchline. They're a receptor density map. And CB1 is almost absent from the brainstem, which is exactly why there's no reliable lethal overdose the way there is with opioids. The machinery running your breathing isn't listening. It doesn't have the receptor. But absent a lethal dose is not the same as safe, and I'd be lying to you if I stopped there. High-potency THC is tied to dependence in a real minority of heavy users, to cannabis hyperemesis, and the one with the strongest evidence to increased psychosis risk in people already vulnerable, especially heavy use in the teens, while the brain is still wiring itself. Is that proven cause? No. The research is genuinely still moving, but you can't overdose and it's safe are 2 completely different sentences, and a lot of people say the first one while meaning the second. Everything so far pushes a button. Stimulants break the cleanup crew. Here's how dopamine is supposed to work. It gets released into the gap between 2 neurons, delivers its message, and then transporter proteins vacuum it straight back up. Message sent, message cleared, system reset. The clearing is the point a signal that never ends isn't a signal, it's noise. Cocaine jams the vacuum, so dopamine floods the gap and stays. The message doesn't finish. It repeats. It screams. That's the euphoria, the confidence, the total certainty that you are the most interesting person in this room and everyone here is lucky. Amphetamines are worse in a genuinely creative way. They don't just block the vacuum, they run it backwards. Actively pump dopamine out. Longer, harder, and much more difficult to walk away from. And 2 things fall out of that. First, remember what dopamine actually says. Do that again. So flooding it doesn't just feel good. It carves that instruction deeper than anything natural ever could. Nothing you eat, nothing you win, nobody you love releases dopamine on that scale, so your brain recalibrates around the new maximum, and then normal life goes gray. Not because the drug is that good, because your baseline moved. Second, dopamine and adrenaline run on overlapping hardware. So while your brain is throwing a party, your heart is sprinting and your blood vessels are clamping shut. Cocaine kills healthy people in their 20s by heart attack and stroke with clean arteries. Not from a poison, from a plumbing failure. And then there's the one that fits best. Your body makes endorphins. And the name isn't poetic, it's literal endogenous morphine. Morphine you make. They plug into opioid receptors and do something genuinely strange. They don't remove pain. They remove caring about it. The injury is still screaming up the wire. The suffering is just turned down. It's how somebody finishes a race on a broken ankle and only finds out later. Morphine, heroin, oxycodone, fentanyl, all of them fit that same lock. Fentanyl just fits harder and faster, around 100 times more potent than morphine. And that number is the whole overdose crisis in one line. It means the gap between a dose and a lethal dose stopped being a range and became a rounding error. It isn't a scarier drug, it's a narrower margin. But here's the real problem with a master key. Those receptors are everywhere, including the brainstem, including one specific cluster of neurons whose entire job is checking the CO2 in your blood and telling you to breathe. You have never once decided to breathe. That circuit does it. 30,000 times a day, it has never asked you. Opioids turn its volume down. Enough of them, and the alarm still goes off and nobody answers. That's what an overdose actually is. It isn't violent. It isn't loud. Someone gets quiet, and their body forgets the one thing it has never forgotten. Next one's quick, and it sets up everything after it. MDMA does to serotonin roughly what cocaine does to dopamine. Dumps it out, blocks the vacuum. And serotonin runs mood, warmth, trust, connection. So you get a flood of exactly that. Oxytocin on top. Everyone in the room is beautiful and you love them. Except serotonin isn't infinite. You didn't make that feeling. You withdrew it. And then Tuesday comes. Users have a name for it. Suicide Tuesday. And it's the cleanest proof of the rule sitting underneath this entire video. Every drug on this list borrows. Not one of them gives. Hold on to that. Because the last drug on this list is going to argue with it. But first, the one that doesn't fit any pattern we've built so far. Every drug so far works by turning something up or down. Ketamine doesn't. Ketamine cuts a line. Remember glutamate, the accelerator, the thing alcohol suppressed? It works through a receptor called NMDA. And NMDA isn't a volume knob. It's closer to a switchboard. It's a huge part of how one region of your brain confirms it's talking to another. How your sense of your body gets stitched to your sense of you. Ketamine blocks it, not gently. It plugs the channel. So the regions don't stop working, they stop being connected. Sensation arrives with no owner. You can be in pain and not be the one having it, which is exactly why it's an anesthetic and why it's on ambulances and battlefields, because unlike almost everything else that strong, it doesn't suppress your breathing. Push further, and you get the dissociation people chase. The floor is far away. Time isn't sequential. The self, whatever that was, is somewhere off to the left. Two things people don't know. 1. Ketamine is the only drug here whose signature damage isn't your brain or your heart. It's your bladder. Heavy, frequent use causes ketamine cystitis, the bladder lining inflames and scars, capacity shrinks, sometimes permanently, sometimes all the way to surgery. In people in their 20s, that's not a rumor, that's a urology clinic. 2. And this is one of the most interesting findings in modern psychiatry. That same NMDA block appears to trigger a rebound surge of glutamate, and downstream, a burst of new synaptic connections, which is why a single supervised infusion can lift treatment-resistant depression in hours when everything else takes weeks. Same molecule, same lock. Two completely different worlds, separated by dose and supervision. Sit with that, it's the closest thing to a moral this video has. Now, the opposite problem. Not a line cut, a filter removed. Your brain is not a camera. It does not show you the world. It shows you a prediction of the world, built out of memory and expectation, then quietly corrected by whatever your senses report. Almost everything you experience is guesswork nobody ever told you about. And that guessing machinery leans hard on one receptor, serotonin 2A, dense in the cortex, sitting on the neurons doing the predicting. LSD grabs that receptor and won't let go. It sits in there for hours, which is most of why a trip lasts so absurdly long. And when you jam it open, the guessing falls apart. Raw sensory data starts arriving without the usual editing. Surfaces breathe because the prediction that walls hold still isn't being enforced anymore. Sounds pick up colors because the routing that kept them apart went loose. And the network that maintains the boundary between you and everything else goes quiet, which people describe every single time in borrowed religious language because it's the only vocabulary we ever built for it. Side effects. LSD is remarkably non-toxic, no meaningful lethal dose, and it isn't reinforcing tolerance builds so fast that taking it 2 days running does close to nothing. The drug is genuinely bad at addicting you, so the risk was never the body. A bad trip isn't a bad mood, it's hours long, you can't leave, and there's no off switch. HPPD leaves some people with visual disturbances for months, and like cannabis, in someone already vulnerable to psychosis, it can pull forward something that was waiting. The danger isn't the molecule, it's what you find when the filter comes off and whether you were ready to meet it. And now, the last one. The one that argues with the rule. There's a drug on this list that hundreds of millions of people take every single day that almost nobody puts in a drugs video, and it works on the exact same protein as MDMA. Antidepressants, SSRIs. Remember the serotonin vacuum the transporter MDMA runs in reverse? SSRIs block it. Same protein, same target. That's the entire mechanism, and it's why the name is what it is. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So here's the puzzle that should stop you cold. If MDMA hits that protein and you feel it in 40 minutes, why does an SSRI take 4 to 6 weeks? Because the serotonin isn't the treatment. The levels change within hours. The relief doesn't. Which means whatever is actually helping isn't the chemical. It's your brain's response to the chemical, the adaptation. The slow rewiring that only happens when a small nudge is held in place long enough that the system reorganizes around it. And that's the twist. Every other drug in this video, the adaptation is the problem. It's what builds tolerance. It's what moves your baseline. It's what makes you need the drug just to feel normal. Here, the adaptation is the point. The adaptation is the medicine. It's still borrowing the rule holds. It just charges a gentler rate. And it does charge. Emotional blunting is real, and it's what people quit over more than anything else. The floor comes up, but the ceiling comes down with it. Sexual side effects are common and badly under-discussed, and stopping abruptly can cause discontinuation syndrome, dizziness, the electrical brain zaps, a rebound that feels like relapse and isn't. So, the only actual advice in this video, these work for a lot of people, and they're prescribed for good reason. Nothing here is an argument for stopping something a doctor put you on. Do not taper yourself off an SSRI because a YouTube video made you thoughtful. Take the thought to the person who prescribed it. Okay, run it back. Caffeine blocks a message. Nicotine trains a loop. Alcohol dissolves into everything. THC slides all the dimmers at once. Stimulants break the cleanup. Opioids fit the master key. MDMA spends your savings. Ketamine cuts the line. LSD removes the filter, and SSRIs hold one small nudge steady until you rebuild around it. 10 drugs, 10 stories, one mechanism. Impersonate a molecule you already make in a system that was never designed to be flooded. And your body always answers the same way. It adapts, it rebuilds itself around the drug, and calls that the new normal. Which is exactly why that last one matters. Because the adaptation isn't the enemy. The adaptation is just physics. What decides whether it heals you or hollows you out is the thing I asked at the very start, and it was never which drug. It's how hard the key turns, and how fast. Fentanyl and an SSRI both borrow. One turns the lock so hard the mechanism snaps in seconds. The other turns it so gently that your body has time to grow around it. Same trick, same locks, different speed. That's not a character flaw, and it was never about willpower. That's homeostasis, working exactly as designed. The only variable that ever mattered is how fast you asked it to move. Now, that thought I told you to hold. Look back at the list and find the highest body count. It isn't the powder. It isn't the needle. It's the legal one. The advertised one. The one poured at every celebration you have ever been to. So here's my question, and I actually want you to answer it. If alcohol were invented tomorrow, brand new molecule, no history, no tradition, no Christmas, and it walked into a regulator's office with everything we just covered on the paperwork. Seizures on withdrawal, carcinogenic breakdown product, 3 million deaths a year. Would it get approved? Or would it be scheduled next to the ones we ban? Tell me in the comments. And be honest, because I don't think our instincts about danger track the biology at all, and I want to know if you think I'm wrong.